Here live and live from the newly revived nation's capital. Like after 4 years, of not having a president, it's very strange. There's a president here. Wow, it really makes a difference. Like we're a lot safer, and we don't have all these criminals coming over the border like we used to. And he actually is settling wars instead of starting them. Well, it's so let's catch you up really quick on the big beautiful bill. Of course, as you know, passed the Senate by a vote of 51-50, which meant that we lost 3 Republicans, right? We lost Rand Paul, and we lost Tillis, who is leaving. And who's the third one, Ted?
Big. So the Senate passed after a marathon vote-orama. The president's $3.3 trillion budget bill advanced with near total GOP unity.
Three voted against. Now, I know 2 of them. 2 of them were.
Who did you name? Let's see if you can get the 3. You said Tillis.
Tillis and
you said
and Rand Paul.
You said Paul. There was a third.
The one from Alaska.
Ron Johnson.
Who?
No, from a state where we're staying very close to this state where we are this summer. Come on. She goes hand in hand with the one from Alaska.
Blackburn.
No, Blackburn would be for it.
Suzanne
Collins.
Yeah. I think you may have mentioned her before.
Now, what the heck was her reason? Taking too much away from Medicaid?
Well, that's the
Do you
line.
know what her reason is?
Yeah, so we're the bill now heads the House, where fiscal hawks in the House Freedom Caucus are frustrated with what they say are shallow spending cuts, and moderates who are concerned over cuts to Medicaid. All have warned that they may not support the bill. Republicans, both leaders in the House and the Senate, have made clear they intend to have the bill on President Trump's desk by Friday. Of course, that being the self-imposed deadline.
It can't get on his desk unless they pass it.
Well, that's right.
It doesn't walk on his desk.
And as of this hour, many House Republicans, including Speaker Mike Johnson, had called on the Senate to make as little changes as possible.
That's a little unrealistic.
The idea being they needed a product that could pass.
I mean, that's. I mean, I generally agree with Johnson, but that's not the right way to approach it.
Senator Mark Wayne Mullin says, we know, quote, we know they, the House, are going to have some issues over there, just like we had some issues when it came over here, too. But we think we're going to pass the bill. We think that we passed a bill that they can pass.
Well, I think the senators showed flexibility. I do, aside from the 3 who voted against it. And you never know. I just say for Collins, you never know if you would have gotten her vote if you needed it. I thought she had more sense than that. But in any event, I don't know how the House can think it can get everything that it wants. I mean, they have to make some concessions to the Senate, and there really is one main part of this that dwarfs every other part of this bill, and really creates a tremendous foundation for our economic revival, which we're undergoing right now. The last year was an extremely positive year for our economy. They're just taking in the results of it now, and the stock market's at a record high. Inflation is at it's slightly higher than the lowest it can be, around 2, but it's very much within reason. All of the people who make a religion of being against tariffs, it's really interesting. We talk about the Muslim religion and the Christian and the Catholic. There's the anti-tariff religion. They've all been proven wrong over and over and over and over and over again. You know what else they're proven wrong about? You still read it in the Wall Street Journal.
Right.
That every tax deduction is a deprivation of income. Believe it or not, there are tax reductions where you make more money from the lower tax than from the higher tax.
Right.
Now, that's simple if you know basic economics, right?
Right.
I'm going to ask you to think about this. There's a television behind me, right?
Right.
So 10 years ago, that would be a very big television 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That television 10 or 15 years ago probably cost, at least 5, 6, 7,000, I would say. Some of them are even up, the big televisions, and that would be considered a big television. Now it's a medium size or a little bigger than medium sized television. That probably cost $1,000. It's down like from bare minimum 5,000 to 1,000. If it's 1,500, it's a lot. So now, how do the companies that make those televisions make money and make even more money now than they were making 10 years ago when they were selling it for 5 times more? Because they sell 25 times more. That's why. And the same thing is true of taxes. If you lower the rate, but the economic activity doubles and triples, and therefore your 5% is extracted from 2 billion, and your 10% was extracted from 500,000, you're making more on your 5% than your 10%. I kind of had to learn that as a mayor who was the first one in New York City history to lower taxes. And at least one of the first ones to create a surplus, which now they can't even spell surplus in New York now. And the guy running, obviously, there's no indication that he can spell anyway. But so the bill is out. It looks like the major parts of it are there, with some parts that aren't as good as they were before. The some of the Medicaid reductions haven't happened. The one that I thought was totally absurd is the House had taken away Medicaid and Medicare from illegals. Why in the name of heaven would we want to be giving free health insurance to people who come here illegally, of which a large percentage of them now turn out to be criminals? There's got to be some stupid reason we're doing that. And that has to be a way we could save money. And we're not getting a single Democrat vote. I can understand if we put that back because we needed Democrat votes and we had to give them a little something. We put that back to satisfy Republicans. Now, what Republican wants to give free health care to illegal aliens? Well, there are some, otherwise it wouldn't be there. And they're in the Senate. It's hard to understand the length and breadth of our party. I mean, there are good things about it, and there are very frustrating things about it. At least we're not a group of cowardly automatons like the people on the other side of the aisle. They vote in lockstep. Every single one of them votes. If they have some maniac coming out saying hateful things about Jewish people or whatever, they go hide in their bomb shelter. Even with this guy now running in New York, did you see how uncomfortable Jeffries was, the House Speaker? Here he is from New York. The guy's a Democrat from New York. He's nominated by the Democrat Party for the second highest position in the state of New York, and one of the more significant positions in the country. And he can't make up his mind about a Democrat. Well, you know why that is, because if he had any courage at all or any residual fondness for the country, he'd be against him because the guy is a very dangerous person. But danger, it doesn't matter. The Democratic Party matters. I mean, that's the party that supported slavery. At the end of my earlier show, the Rudy Giuliani show, I was very pleased to have both Kara Castronova and Ali Reza Jeff Sardardi. And Kara took us through a lot of the big beautiful bill and a lot of the things that are going on in Washington. And Ali Reza alerted us to something. Remember, it was only a few days before, maybe about a week before, Ted, that the attack took place in Iran, that he brought to us the information about Semnon Desert,
Right.
where they had discovered enormous numbers of
we have that. Let's see, from our MEK friends, and by the mayor, they announced this on our show.
They announced it on our
The
show,
day
and then
before.
2 days later, the attack took place.
That's
And you know,
right.
now what is going on? And he brought me all these articles from Le Figaro.
Can you see
Le
that?
Figaro is the. So what you're looking at the largely underpopulated area to the east of Tehran province. So that's like from Tehran heading toward Russia, let's say. And it is either the biggest or the second biggest province in Iran, but it's very, very sparsely populated. And the circles that you see are all highly secure areas. They're areas that people are not allowed in, and what are they doing there? This is not enrichment, but this is to the other part that's crucial to being able to be a nuclear power. They are making their ballistic missiles and other missiles much more powerful, so they can go much further distances. Like they can make it to England. Like they can come over the Atlantic Ocean and hit, New York or New Jersey or Washington. And there are a lot more of them there than anyone knew, and they are much more advanced than anyone knew. Now, this is part of years and years of MEK doing this. MEK, although very often they're not given the credit for it, because the Iran regime of terror has done a good job of demonizing them, so you won't trust them. Although that doesn't work with the Mossad. It was way back in 2002 or 3 that they first discovered the enrichment facility at Natanz, and then they and Mossad really pursued this dramatically, and they uncovered most of the ones that were in the area where the bombing took place at Fordow and Isfahan, and they also discovered some in the eastern part of the country and the western part of the country. And that's what led to eventually the Obama sellout to them with the nuclear agreement he made with them, which would really put him on a path to becoming a nuclear power within 10 years. But more importantly, for reasons we'll never know, he was sending them cash money. Obama was. I'm not kidding. He was sending them cash. Now, I'm sure just a little slight exercise of the art and science of logic, you're going to say, aren't they the biggest sponsor of terrorism? Doesn't that mean they give money to terrorists? And isn't it said that about 50% of their budget goes to terrorists? So wouldn't at least 50% of the money that our president was giving them go to terrorists? And why would they want it in cash? Oh, because they give it to terrorists. So all throughout this period of time, MEK has been an enormous obstacle and a bane to the existence of the regime, to such an extent that the Ayatollah gave them the distinction of saying that that was the one organization that he truly feared. And now, if you go to Figaro, you will see that Iran is on a mission to try to destroy them. First of all, Iran blames them, MEK, directly in Figaro. If you can read French, or even if you can't, you can get one of those, I don't know, one of those things on iPhone and just put it down there and it'll translate to French for you. But basically, the articles going back about 2.5 to 3 weeks say that the regime is blaming the MEK for being a traitor to Iran and helping Mossad develop the critical information that it had that showed that Mossad has completely invaded their country. Remember, some of the bombs that were used were like the Ukrainians did to the Russians, were brought into Iran months and months ago. And they were small, relatively small devices that were launched way inside Iran, which means they penetrated the country. And their information about the whereabouts of the critical people to be killed was spot on. Now, this is the second time they've done that. The last time it was rumored they did it with MEK. And if you read these articles, you'll see whether they did or they didn't, the Ayatollah and his henchmen blame them for it. And now they're doing everything they can to limit their activities to nothing or eliminate them and their facility in Albania, because they say the facility is being used for purposes of overthrowing the regime. And from everything I can tell, the Albanian government has cracked down on that regime at the request of Iran, or at the probably threat from Iran, so that there's not much they can do there anymore. Iran has pretty much succeeded in asserting its will over the Albanian government. And when I was more directly involved in it and President Trump was in office, it was just the opposite. Eddie was much more likely, Eddie May was much more likely to work with MEK. Now, there are constant, almost daily complaints by the Iranian government to the French newspapers about MEK actively using Albanian territory to create a revolution in Iran. They're not, but it's there. And I can't say that MEK is not doing anything, but I can say in reading it that it's very exaggerated. And you can see what's going on with the regime, which is really why it's at the last. It's seeing shadows now. They are attributing to MEK a lot more than would be possible for MEK to do. But they seem to truly believe it. And therefore, the French are convinced that they're going to be, in America, we call them sleeper cells. I don't know if they use the same word in French. It didn't seem that way. But the French are convinced that they're going to be attacks in France. And they're making arrests. And they're doing the best they can to infiltrate and stop it. And of course, our law enforcement people have now for the last several weeks said that the response from Iran, even though there is a so-called ceasefire, that the response from Iran might very well be not direct military attacks, but terrorist attacks. And, you know, if you watch how the Iranian army operates, they don't operate really like an army. They operate like a terrorist group. The attacks they did on Israel, given the limited amount of missiles that they had, and the very excellent defense that Israel had to the missiles, which means you had to use multiple missiles to hit one target, maybe even 100 to hit one target. They would have been much better advised not to hit civilians, which they almost exclusively targeted, but to try to go after the IDF, to try to go after the IDF facilities, to try to go after as much of their Iron Dome and related. In other words, to take out the instruments that Israel has available to them to very effectively conduct war against them. They almost ignored that. and they were hitting the middle of Tel Aviv, and they were hitting the middle of small towns in the southern part of Israel. You didn't hear, I don't even remember a particular targeted attack on an Israeli base. I think in the course of all of this, they took down one Israeli plane. And I think it was taken down like in protecting themselves, not as an attack on the Israeli Air Force so that it could reduce its effectiveness against them. But that's what a mature military power would do. They did what a mature terrorist country would do. They attacked civilians on purpose. I mean, just exactly what they are accusing Israel of doing in Gaza, they were doing in Israel. And you know that Israel, number one, is too humane, but number two, is too smart to attack civilians. Attacking civilians is playing right into their hands and into the hands of the communist and other dishonest and crooked press, because they'll exaggerate it. I mean, until recently, you weren't even hearing about the children that were killed in Ukraine, even though they're opposed to Putin, and you're just hearing about the children killed in Gaza. That's probably the only place in the world where the army conducting the war was actually trying not to kill the children, and the army that was being attacked was putting the children up front, because the army that was being attacked knew that it could win only if they created false impressions like that. So Iran is now on a campaign to do everything it can do, both in terms of physical attacks, and then they have vaunted press operation and public relations operation to destroy MEK. This is I'll read you a bit from the article in Le Figaro today, July 1st. And this is translated from the French. Aside from the hypothesis of a deadly attack perpetrated by a radical Muslim already inflamed by the war in Gaza, Bruno Retailleau, undoubtedly one of the best informed individuals in the country, pointed to the regime of the Ayatollahs and mullahs who have attempted to carry out attacks on French soil that have been thwarted. Referencing a violent action that was aborted thanks to the effort of intelligence services in 2018, the Interior Minister referred to a bomb plot aimed at a large gathering in Villepinte in June of that same year. That was in 2018. Thousands of opponents to the theocratic regime in Tehran were expected to attend, including several prominent American guests, while the assassins orchestrated by Tehran also aimed to reach Bill Richardson, the former U.S. ambassador to the UN, as well as former New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani. The main target seemed to be Maryam Rajavi, president of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI. This body unites several opposition movements, including the People Mujahideen of Iran, PMOI, one of the regime's main adversaries. The presumed members of the commando, caught in contact with an Iranian intelligence agent acting undercover as a third secretary at the Iranian embassy in Vienna, were intercepted in a restaurant in the old town of Luxembourg 48 hours before they were scheduled to blow up the gathering. Today, it is these exiled dissidents who could once again be in the sights of Tehran's intelligence services. The Iranian community in France numbers 62,000 people, and they are primarily opponents, and they are sympathizers of PMOI or MEK, whichever you use, it's interchangeable. The exiled Mujahideen movement, removed from the American and European list of terrorist entities since their renunciation of armed struggle and violent actions way back in 2001. So that's a quick English summary. Terrorisme, c'est menace iranien qui prend sur la France. Don't, that's the French version, and it's much longer. I mean, that was a summary of the article, and it gets into more specifics about plots that they have interrupted, but they do note a great deal of activity going on, which is frightening because if they're doing it in France, they're doing it here as well. This also involved a speech that Madame Rajavi gave to the European Parliament on June 18th, 2025, in which she basically sounded like she was just repeating what President Trump eventually said, that there's no reason for any foreign nation, including the United States, to put boots on the ground, that they are fully capable of overthrowing the Ayatollah, given the mood in the country and the support in the country. But what they need is for the West to stop propping up the terrorist regime, which America was probably the most guilty of. We were probably the biggest financier of the terrorist regime. Well, having said that, it's worth taking a little time off to think about how crazy that is. And we'll
come back with our first guest.
And we'll be right back, and we'll come back with our first guest.
An old friend. People will be very excited to see her. It's been
here
quite
we
some
are
time.
In Washington, and we can see a lot of our old friends. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. Welcome back to America's Mayor Live. And we have Justine Murray with us. And you remember Justine was on the show very often when she lived in New York, and we were broadcasting out of New York. And now she's working here in Washington. And we'll begin with, tell us what you're doing, because it's all very relevant to what we're covering.
Yeah, well, first, it's so good to see you again. I feel like we've all made the trek down to DC now that it's the golden age once again.
Yes, I'm allowed to come in now.
Yes.
They let me through the
Thank goodness.
Berlin Wall.
Yeah, the last time I was here, it was President Czar Biden in office,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we couldn't go outside without our masks on. But I work for the Media Research Center now, and we cover left-wing media bias, particularly my
See,
shtick.
that's a big subject.
It is a very big subject because it seems like even though President Trump has won once again, their derangement hasn't really turned any voters off. They're still working overtime, specifically the legacy media working overtime to try to demonize the president. And especially right now, peddle what I cover is wokeism and wokeness.
Mhm.
And it's so much more than just a man in a dress.
Right.
It's this coddling of this support for Marxism, sometimes what I like to call racial Marxism. So all the violence that you've seen in the streets, the embassy shooting, the shooting of those 2 Jewish embassy staffers, I call that racial Marxism. That's what wokeness has called. That's basically what it is in its purest form. And with the legacy media, you've been talking about Iran. Well, CNN, in the name of fighting what they believe are the big evil Western oppressors, it seems like CNN and our American media are actually taking the side of the Islamic regime.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I get the communism thing because it's been going on since the communist revolution, certainly in Russia, and maybe even earlier than that in Europe. And a lot of these people, the kids and the not so young, have been trained as communists.
Yeah.
Many of them are too stupid to know it, but some of it comes directly. I mean, I can hear Karl Marx in the government should have control of the means of production. That's what the Democratic candidate for mayor of New York said the other day.
Exactly.
That's right, out of Karl Marx.
And that's exactly what
It's absurd. That is an absurd thing for an American to say.
it seems like the left is trying to restart the Cultural Revolution, China's Cultural Revolution, but now they're trying to have it right here in this country.
Mhm.
And it's frightening how you have the Maoists on college campuses and in the media partner with Islamists, which you would think they would be on opposite sides because Islamists are religious and Maoists or communists, they believe that religion should be banned. But their similarities is that they hate America, they hate the West, they hate everything that a free Western society stands for. So now they actually, what I like to call Islamo-Marxism, they've banded together, and this is what you're seeing on college campuses. This is what you're seeing in the legacy media, where CNN actually released what they claim to have been an official White House document. They've been praying and hoping that our retaliation against Iran doesn't work because they hate President Trump that much that they're actually willing to cheer for America's enemies.
Yeah, but that's part of their education too. The education was solely focused on criticism of the United States. It really wasn't history. It was polemics. It was either a mistake America made or a mistake that they falsely attribute to America, or a mistake that they exaggerate. It's to tear down the country, and now there are so many of them.
Yep. That
they're really dangerous, and one of them is running for mayor of New York.
Yeah, exactly.
And his hatred of the Jewish people is, I don't know. We'd have to go back to who was that guy in New Orleans, the right wing guy.
Oh, David Duke.
David Duke. You'd have to go back to David Duke, and I can't. And honestly, I can't remember David Duke well enough to know if I'm even being fair to David Duke by comparing him to this communist guy who hates America, hates the Jewish people, says things like the government should take over the means of production, or the government should own grocery stores or should own supermarkets.
Well, at this point, it's indistinguishable. So you have the David Duke types, and you have the mainstream left. The only difference is that, at least for now, that with the right, the people on the right, all the fringe anti-Semites, they're still on Twitter. They're just these social media types. But with the left, they've embraced this and adopted this as their mainstream platform. And you can tell that exactly by seeing who wins primaries, and who also gets peddled by the legacy media. So the legacy media has been kind of propping up this mayoral candidate, but also just like they're propping up these foreigners who they're like, what, in their mid 30s, but they still attend Columbia. They come from the Gazan territories or the Palestinian territories, and they chant for the support of, quote unquote, destroying Western civilization, which was actually a goal with one of these Columbia University chapters. And the media props them up. 60 Minutes propped up one of these foreigners they were facing deportation as these poor innocent martyrs of what they blame us. They blame us for fascism when these guys are the ones who, call to murder every Jew and to call to basically destroy the civilization. But they still want to be part of it. They just want to conquer us.
They want to run it, and they want to change it. They want to change it to, well, I guess in the case of the Muslim extremists, some form of Muslim extremism. They sort of want to use the bad Muhammad rather than good Muhammad as their leader. And this guy who's running for mayor, he's pretty easy to figure out. I mean, he's sort of a combination of a Islamic extremist and a communist.
Exactly.
Both. I mean, it comes together very comfortably. Because I guess they don't really believe in God. They could be communists if they do.
Exactly. Most of these people, and they're mostly college campus types, they don't believe in God, or at least they think it's hip and cool not to believe in God. Yet they still somehow side with the Islamic extremists who believe in Allah and believe we're all infidels going to hell. Their college campus supporters would be murdered and thrown off buildings in the Middle East. Yet they still somehow side with them, and it's because for now they have a common enemy, and the common enemy is us.
Yes, and it's really tragic because you can feel it in the parades and the demonstrations and all the other things that are going on. So tell me, how do you look at the war, what remains of the war in Israel with Gaza? Do you think it's coming to an end, or have they pretty much accomplished their purpose? Is Hamas crushed?
I don't know if Hamas is crushed. Israel has done a lot to defeat them, but they're still out there. They still have hostages. They took Americans. They killed, it seems like they killed at least half of the people they've taken hostage. But a lot of people forget that there's still hostages there. And it seems like, we just pretend it's a foreign issue. It never happened, or, oh, that was 2 years ago. But they still have Americans. And before President Trump came, we had a previous president who seemed like he just didn't care if America, if they came home or not. So when you have a lot of these isolationist types and they say, oh, well, it's not our war, it's not our war. These are the people who took our own. They took people who have mutual connections from where I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah, right.
And the Iranian regime, they've chanted and they continue. They actually tried to assassinate President Trump multiple times. They just called for his assassination again. And somehow we have people who claim they're America first, yet they seem to be more defensive of the Islamic regime than actually standing up for a president, actually standing up for the Americans, for the Westerners who have been brutalized by them.
Right. Well, I think the president is navigating us through this about as well as he can.
Yeah.
The amount of damage done to Iran, combination of Netanyahu and Trump, has been historic. I mean, about a year and a half ago, right? Maybe even less. I'd say 2 years ago, Iran was sitting sort of at the top of the world.
Yeah.
They really had the makings of an Axis alliance. They had Syria, and for a while they had all of Iraq, part of Iraq. They had Hezbollah in Lebanon and a lot of other places.
Yeah.
And they had Hamas in Gaza, and they had the Houthis in Yemen, and they were developing quite a good relationship with both the Chinese and the Russians. That's the makings of a world war when you have an axis like that.
Exactly.
It's almost all gone due to Bibi Netanyahu. I mean, he may not have. It may be impossible to actually wipe out all of Hamas because they're mixed in with the Palestinian people so much that, I mean, when people get extremely sympathetic about the Palestinians, and of course, I am sympathetic with the ones that are innocent,
Right.
if I could find them.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't see them coming forward, except recently. They've had demonstrations recently.
Yeah.
Last 2 months, they've had demonstrations against the regime, and they've had demonstrations even in favor of the Israeli people. So I'm sure that there's a percentage of Palestinians, as there would be with such an insane philosophy, who are against them. But it's not a big percentage. It's not a very vocal one. At best, they're like the Jewish Democrats who are traitors to their people.
Exactly.
Like the Schumers, who will let the Squad or this guy Rambadama, they'll let him say anything, and they won't respond. I mean, I can't imagine what I would do if he were doing that to Italians.
Exactly.
And I sure as heck wouldn't be able to show my face and my family if I didn't do something.
It kind of sucks because throughout history, it seems like Jewish people now it's Jewish people and specifically white liberal women who we love to shoot ourselves in the foot. Every other identity group has this like BLM type.
The Israelis sure don't.
Not the Israeli.
Bannon was making this point the other day, and Steve can sometimes be very controversial.
Yeah.
He was basically saying that the Israelis should get over the fact that the American Jews support them. He said it's the American evangelicals and Catholics and everybody else that supports them. But now that's a little bit of an overstatement. I mean, I've probably got one of the largest votes that any non-Jewish candidate ever got in New York, even larger than Ed Koch, particularly when I threw Arafat out.
Yeah.
But I very conveniently in New York, for purposes of campaigning, would divide the Jewish vote into thirds.
Right.
1/3 very pro-Israel. Not quite 1/3 very religious, but a good percentage of them very religious.
Right.
And the more religious they are, except for the 1 or 2 fringe Hasidic groups, the more pro-Israel they are.
Yep, that's true.
And the braver they are.
Yep.
It just happens to be. I mean, you look at 9/11, a lot of the people who died are disproportionately religious people. Then you have a third. I don't even know if they're Jewish. They hate Israel.
Yeah,
They're embarrassed of people who are too Jewish. I would have people, friends from law school and college say, "How can you hang out? How can you spend so much time with those Hasidic people?" I said, "Well, they happen to be really nice people, and they're very religious, and they're the least of my. I mean, I got a lot of problems being mayor of New York. I've got like 2,000 plus murders a year.
Yeah,
we got it in the hands of a mayor who has a hard time figuring out where work is every day, and you want me to worry about people who, and the worst thing they do is complain or
Kvetch.
make noise.
Yeah. Oh God.
What was that word?
Kvetch.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that in a while.
God forbid.
They're the nicest people. I mean, I had several clients who were Hasidic before I ran for mayor. I used to go to weddings, and I got to know the community really well. And like almost any other group, when you get beyond the surface, you start to meet them, you realize there's some really nice people. And I used to think they got the worst treatment by the hoi polloi Jewish people who
yeah. Oh, we don't associate with you, Hasids.
Then there's the middle, and the middle third can be religious or not. They're almost, the middle is almost all pro-Israel in a certain way, but the middle has itself really confused about ancient liberalism. Franklin Roosevelt, and except Israel, the Jewish people probably never had a bigger traitor than Franklin Roosevelt. Who let the boat, wouldn't do anything about the camps, tried to cover it. I mean, whew.
So he's the ones who claim to be the most progressive that shoot ourselves in the foot.
But it's a third, and a third,
yeah.
Which is why President Trump was able to get up so high and You know who got the biggest Jewish vote, though, of a presidential candidate ever? It was Ronald Reagan in '80
That's very telling.
because of Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
I mean, people forget how anti-Semitic he was, including after he became, the alleged savior of the world.
Yeah.
But basically, he was saving all the people who hate us.
How easily does our community forget? And I worry that, after October 7th, and it sucks that it had to take October 7th for Jews to finally wake up, that the people they've been singing Kumbaya for or just want us dead no matter what. But thanks to Jewish people who woke up, a lot of Jews voted for President Trump. But now, you give it a couple of years, and I wonder if are the secularists going to go back to their same old
It
ways?
seems like they are.
Yeah.
I mean, there seems to be a fairly, I don't know how big, but there seems to be a bigger than it should be movement where Jews are complaining that Israel is being unfair to they're being brutal and they're committing war crimes. And just a little common sense would tell you that they couldn't possibly be doing that because it would be so stupid.
Yeah.
First of all, if you don't realize that the Israeli nation is a humane nation, that doesn't mean it's doesn't have its flaws, but it's basically based on the same thing we are, values of Western civilization. I mean, Jews helped to create it. But secondly, forget all that. They're very smart.
Yep.
The worst thing they could possibly do is kill children. They're playing into if they targeted children, that's the worst thing that's the only way they can lose the war. I mean, that's being used against them so effectively by their enemy and so unfairly that I've never seen anyone conduct a war attempting not to have collateral damage like they have. Which is also in their own self-interest to do it that way.
Right.
But it's like, you have to be an absurd, stupid moron to think that Israel is targeting children.
The proportionality also, it's the lowest civilian to combatant.
Because they realize that's a weapon. Their enemy uses that as a weapon and they want to deny them. It's really part of conducting the war.
Of course.
To try to reduce the civilian casualties. Not that they would deliberately do it, but they wouldn't think about it.
Right.
Like when England was bombing Germany and hit Frankfurt, they weren't thinking about all the civilians they were killing. They were just remembering all the civilians the Germans killed.
And the media and the anti-Jews out there, and this is how they really show their true colors, because we'd have to ask, would they be doing the same thing now about when Nazi Germany was getting bombed? Would they have said, "Oh, why are we bombing Nazi Germany"? Maybe.
Why didn't they point out? Why didn't they point out in the war between Iran and Israel that almost in every case, the Iranians, I think, stupidly targeted civilians?
Yeah. I
don't know if they ever hit a base. They took out one plane. They're terrible warriors. I mean, I thought we could go in there and probably take it over faster than Iraq, but it made no sense to target Jewish civilians for the purpose of terrorism because you're not going to have your impact on the Jewish people. What are you going to scare them?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you should have been trying to take out their airplanes. You should have been trying to take out the Iron Dome and related things. You should have been trying to take out their Navy. They almost did no damage to the Israeli military force.
Thank God.
I can't imagine they couldn't do some.
Usually what happens
Or they said they act like terrorists.
They act like terrorists. They try very hard. And if you look at the maps sometimes you can see like the maps of a crossfire or an image, and you'll see the Israeli fire and it's all squiggly because they're intentionally trying to get specific combatant targets. Well, you have Hamas or you have Iran, and it's just straight out because they just want to get anyone. Their goal is to get
You know what reminds me of? Kara is still here. She'll appreciate this. It reminds me when two people are fighting, and one knows how to fight and the other doesn't, and one is going like this, and the other person is just putting their hands up and go. Boop. That's what Israeli was. the Iranians are hitting apartment buildings and hospitals and killing civilians because they're going to terrorize Israel. Come on. Israel's been through so much, you can't terrorize Israel anymore. Probably the worst country in the world to use that strategy.
It's
But
true.
if you're going to use that strategy at all, that's not the country to use it. Meanwhile, the Israeli airplanes had perfect control of Iranian airspace. They also were uncontested in their own country. No one bombed their airfields. No one bombed the Navy. No one. They must have some intelligence on where Iron Dome is.
Yeah.
I mean, I can figure out where Iron Dome is. I'm sure. Well, maybe they can't. They're probably not as smart as I am. But
They're so consumed with hate that they can't actually learn geography or anything else. And it's also goes to show why Gaza, even before October 7th, why Gaza, instead of developing themselves, they used all the tunnels and all the tools that were left over by Israel in 2005 just to make more terrorist tunnels, just to create weapons, just to use every resource they could have done to help their own community, to turn it into a weapon against Israel, against their neighbors. So it just goes to show they never actually wanted to build Gaza. They never wanted to have a two-state solution or build themselves up. They just wanted to exist for the sole purpose of targeting Jews.
well, I'll get in a lot of trouble for this, but it's the truth. They are missing, as a large group, not all of them, but as a large group, they're missing any kind of solid moral basis.
It's true.
It's a religion based on a out of control killer,
Primitive ideology.
pedophile,
Yeah.
sick man,
Yep.
and who turned into a sick man. And there was a really good article written finally, although she didn't get the chronology right about the two Muhammads, and they're selecting the bad Muhammad, but that's a real Muhammad.
Yeah.
And she says the Quran is contradictory. The Quran will talk about being charitable and understanding and have brotherly feelings for people of the book and the people of Abraham, Jews, Christians, Muslims.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, you can be reading that. And the next chapter is, if you see him, kill him.
Yeah.
And the only thing acceptable under certain circumstances is they pay tribute. Otherwise, kill him.
And then you get the
And
72.
it'll be the next chapter, and you'll say, "What the hell's going on here?"
Right.
Yeah.
The reason is that the book is not organized in chronological order. So now, if you reorder it, you'd see the logic of it. You'd see a fairly benign character who thought he was going to convert everybody, thought he was going to convert the Jews, the Christians, and his own people.
Right.
He was an epileptic, which had them all conclude that he was, all of them, Christians, Jews, and Arabs, that he was possessed by the devil.
Right.
He was of a very weak moral character, right? And he was not particularly effective. So they threw him the hell out.
Yeah.
And he went out into the desert with the uneducated Bedouins who would have no ability to critically analyze what he was saying. And they bought the idea that the angel Gabriel came to the top of the Temple Mount and took him off to heaven.
Yeah.
Whereas when he was trying to say that to the people in town, the educated Arabs and Christians and Jews, they would look at him and say, "Well, you get out of here, you crazy maniac."
Yeah.
And then in the middle of it, he'd be on the ground going, having an epileptic fit, which they thought was possessed by the devil. Who knows? Maybe he was.
Maybe.
But the reality is, you can't base a religion on something like this. So I was on Piers Morgan's show the other day, and I said the Muslims have to make a choice whether they're going to read that out of their religion,
Right.
or they're going to stick to it. But you can't just be a never land about it.
Have both.
And then my adversary, who turned out to be a very
Young Turks.
because his argument is so terrible, he just got very ad hominem and said I was lying, and I don't know what I was lying about.
They always do
But
that.
he got so
Yeah.
ad hominem, and which is really the sign of intellectual weakness. But he started in with all that stuff, and he said nobody asked the Jews to read out parts of the Christians to. Well, I don't know anybody in the Jewish or Christian religion that was leading an army to go kill I mean, if somebody in the Jewish religion was saying the way to spread Judaism is to go kill the people who aren't Jewish, or if Jesus was saying, I want you to spread the religion, my apostles, and just, if they don't agree, you chop their heads off.
Right.
Well, if we wanted to continue with that religion, I'm sorry, we'd have to read that out.
And you don't see Jews hijacking planes. Like you don't see.
No, you don't see that. On Ramadan, we always get warned. We better stay in because there's going to be a lot of violence.
Right.
We don't get warned about that on the high holy days or on Easter.
On the high holy days, we get warned that Islamists will come and bomb us. Hence why my synagogue has to be armed. It seems like it's more armed than the White House sometimes.
It is, and it historically has always been a warrior religion, because it was founded by a warrior, and that's what he was. He was a general, and that's, as a preacher, he was a total failure. He'd be like a guy who was trying to put together one of these mega churches, and he'd get 5 people every Sunday. And then when they showed up, he'd have an epileptic fit and they all run out. But as a warrior, he was enormously effective. I mean, he conquered the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, and then his relatives conquered Persia.
Yeah.
I mean, Iran is only Muslim under the sword. They were Zoroastrians. They didn't want to be Muslims.
And then, unfortunately, which is a warning to young people in this country right now, you had these young people in Iran who thought it was hip and cool to have their own cultural revolution, which was really the Islamic revolution, and they were complicit in what is now basically Iran now, the Islamic fascist regime. And we're seeing patterns. We're seeing the same thing happen here. Young Americans cheering on basically their own demise because they've been taught that it's hip and cool and woke.
Yeah, and it's very frightening, but makes it interesting to study it. Zohran Mandami, Dami, whatever, is a perfect embodiment of it. He is a communist, and he's an Islamic extremist, and it's almost as if they exist very nicely side by side. They justify murder. They justify every form of immorality and lying and cheating and saying ridiculous things and creating hatreds, and all in the name of spreading the religion of this pathological murder, or spreading the political ideology of an equally sick, satanic man, Karl Marx, who actually believed in Satan.
And that's why the ideology.
I mean, these are 2 wonderful founders, Marx and Muhammad.
The 2 M's, the double M, and that's why it fuses together so perfectly. We saw it. I'm sure you saw in the UK that a glorified rapper. I like to call him like the glorified grunter, or a bum who basically was platformed by virtue signalers who thought, this guy's being hip and edgy by calling for. He just chanted death to the IDF.
This is the guy that they Marco Rubio denied him a visa.
Yeah.
Just denied him a visa. They're really upset about that.
And it's so funny.
It's just what we need, another person who hates Jews and will create an atmosphere so some more people will go out and kill them.
And he's calling himself a free speech martyr when he called for actual physical violence. He called to hurt people based on their affiliations. Meanwhile, in the UK, they actually refused to investigate another band similar to him who literally chanted, "Kill your local MP." They said, well, that's free speech. But what's not free speech in the UK is, grandmas who are jailed. They were actually jailed for protesting abortion, protesting Muslim rape gangs. So
England and Germany, and to some extent France, are really, really in a race with each other to become completely oppressive, to completely eliminate free speech. I can't remember if it's England or Germany. They've gone so far as to eliminate free thought. So in this case, they arrested somebody who had anti-Semitic material in his apartment, but there was no indication one way or the other whether he did anything.
Right.
In fact, there was some could have been a phony defense or could have been the truth, that he was studying it. And they put him in jail because he had it. That's scary as hell.
It's really
That's scary as hell. The one thing we've always been very, very clear on, you don't get prosecuted for what you're thinking.
Exactly.
Like if you were to say, gee, I thought about robbing that bank. That's pretty bad to think about robbing a bank, but you don't go to jail for it, for thinking about it.
Exactly.
Now, if you do it, you get, because now all of a sudden, you can just make up putting people in jail, which is what they do. So I don't know what has happened to Germany, England, and to some extent France. You know, they used to be considered liberal democracies, and they accused the right-wing parties of being Nazis. But they are.
They're the ones.
They're doing exactly what the Nazi Party used to do.
And a lot of people don't realize how important the document of the First Amendment of our Constitution is, because that's what makes America so special and how we distinguish us from them. The UK never had a First Amendment. They never had a document, same with Germany, never had a document saying you have the right to free speech. No matter how hateful it is, you still have the right to speak. Yet people took that for, they seemed kind of like free countries. Well, now we're seeing the effects of not having that document, not having that guaranteed as an inalienable right, because you're seeing the slippery slope in these so-called, I like to call the UK, they're kind of like, they're not even fair weather. They're just full-blown pro-censorship. But we can see the slippery slope with censorship where they'll decide whatever speech they like. Okay, well, they'll consider that free speech. But some anti-Semites, depending on, if it's a left-wing or an Islamist anti-Semite, that's free speech. But don't you dare be someone who might be on the right, or else we're going to throw you in jail. And that's the problem with censorship either way. Whether you're censoring people on the right or the left, the problem is that the power will always be on the hands of your enemy. It will always be on the hand of someone who will eventually censor you too, even though we think maybe right now, they're only censoring people we disagree with. They will come for us at some point. Yeah.
Right. And it assumes that they possess absolute truth.
Yeah.
That they are the arbiters of truth.
Exactly.
Ted, shall we take a short break?
Let's take a quick break. We have one more guest. Those of you on X have probably heard of him, but we'll come back and talk with an old friend we haven't
Thank you
seen.
very much, Justine. It was
Thank you.
terrific.
So good to see you.
Of course, Justine, we love seeing her. We're going to get her on board. And actually, before we go, when we start we'll play her segment, she hosts MRC Media Research Center's World of Woke.
Yep.
And you released
I love that.
today, so I'm going to try and play this video if I can. Yeah, man, we love that title. So we'll play this going into break here. So
Sounds good.
this is Justine in her new role.
Thug music.
Shut the up.
So he took to
Gotta get the volume up.
this dollar store. Kanye West felt like he couldn't stay relevant recycling famous people's names to sell his
Let's
two-dimensional
do it. Yeah,
thug
let's go.
music.
Shut the up.
So he took to the stage at a UK concert to regurgitate the same worn-out battle cry peddled by every conventional rebel seeking cheap clicks for bravely marching in lockstep with every other rebel.
Death to the IDF. Death to the IDF.
Yes, calling for the genocide of Jews in the name of questioning authority is so edgy and groundbreaking that the machine must force all their British performers to do the same, or else get cancelled. You've landed in the worlds of woke with MRC TVN's Culture. I'm your host, Justine Brooke Murray. Our self-appointed pop overlords are sinister enough for directing their death chants at music festivals, a setting where terrorists actually heeded the call on their would-be fan base. Is it an intentional dig at the Jewish hippies who were butchered to the tinny tune of the same mindless drivel? Or are they merely choosing music festivals because they know 2/3 of their own crowd are guaranteed to be stoned off their butts and ready to cheer on their own lobotomy? Even more sinister are the radically chic rappers who are cranked out by the machine just to stomp around on stage pretending they're its martyrs for spewing the Marxist script of the day.
We've done it all right? From working in bars to working for Zionists.
But to this guy's 20-year-old base of wannabe Maoists, it sounds really cool.
Because sometimes you got to get your message across with violence.
So while the woke honors their free speech martyrs this week, maybe we should take a moment to honor our forgotten victims of their UK speech codes, people jailed for posting memes and sending private texts questioning their government education. That wraps today's episode. Make sure you tune into my show every week where I bring you the left's most insane moments and expose their latest attempts to weaken the West. Then hit the like on YouTube, plus on Rumble, follow us on social media, comment below what you think, and don't cave to the leftist media agenda. If you like the work we do here at MRC, please consider donating at mrc.org/donate. It's the best way to help our movement. Thanks for joining us.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal, 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Welcome back to America's Mayor Live. And I think you have all read, if not seen, Nick. Nick Sorter is, I would say, one of the most active, one of the most, I mean, a lot of people would say controversial. I think he's a great patriot and uncovers, well, I have great respect for him as somebody who used to be an investigator, and he has unlimited courage.
I appreciate it,
Well,
Mr.
tell me,
Mayor.
Nick.
So
What's you tell us what's going on, because you're out there looking under every leaf.
Yeah, so I want to give a shout out to Mayor Giuliani here. But I actually first met him in East Palestine, Ohio. You were one of the few people that decided to come out. You know, I broke that story out there when no media outlets, no mainstream media, they were all trying to hide the story. They wanted to brush it under the rug on behalf of the Biden administration, and you came out and helped shine a light on it. So, I mean, you deserve a hell of a lot of credit for making that happen and actually bringing that story to light. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, a lot of the stories that I was covering under Biden were these people that were just being, it happened more than once. It wasn't just East Palestine. It was also Maui. It was also Western North Carolina, where he basically just abandoned these people because they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to admit that they were botching the response. They would rather, that administration would rather brush it under the rug and pretend like it never happened, no matter how much suffering is done because of it. They just wanted to make sure it wasn't a political liability for them. So luckily, I haven't had to do anything like that under Trump yet. And trust me, I would call him out for the same thing. It's not, this is not a political issue. This is
no, but you can see it when he the way he reacted to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
What did he get? 2 votes in Los Angeles?
Right.
But his reaction to the fires in Los Angeles was no different than his reaction to the natural disasters in North Carolina that he won.
Yeah.
Or his reaction to what goes on in New York. You would say, well, maybe that's because he's a New Yorker, but gosh almighty, he had no support here.
Right.
It's the same thing as his reaction to Florida. It's almost impossible if you're really a president I mean, I can't actually think of a president before, but even Obama wasn't as bad as that about partisan reaction. He sort of began it. But and we can't say Biden. We have to say
whoever the hell was running
the council. It's like the French Revolution when they had Robespierre. You know, they had the council of murderers, or the council of communists, or whatever the hell it was.
Well, we found out
Some
recently,
unknown group of 4 or 5 people that were making the decisions.
Sure, and I mean, I think you saw that. I don't know if you saw this with James O'Keefe, I believe, the other day, that came out with this
Yes.
undercover video with. I don't remember. The reason I don't remember his name is because he's so unmemorable. He was the chief of staff for Jill Biden, and he was the
Bernal.
one. Bernal. He was the one that he's sharper than I am.
No, he's a diminutive Robespierre. He's about 5'2" or 4'2", and he's called her work husband,
which is weird as hell. I'm sorry.
I mean, of course, she is. He's at great disadvantage because she's a stunning Vogue model.
He's on your screen.
The first step. The first
there he is.
There's the first stepmother on Vogue 4 or 5 times more than that rather plain Melania Trump.
At least he doesn't wear boot lifts like Ron DeSantis. Oh, can I say that on the show? I don't know. Maybe.
But you were brutal.
I mean, it's
At
so
a time
weird,
when
man.
you had to be. But so you've spent a lot of time looking at the border.
Yeah, and you know what? Luckily, I don't have to spend any time there anymore because there's nothing to see.
Aren't you? Even I'm surprised he did it so quickly.
Oh my God, I don't think
I thought it would take a year. Take a year. I knew he would get there. I knew he'd be able to do that because that's really a question of just organizing and getting the right morale. But I thought it would take about a year to get it to that point. But those people must have been just really ready. It's like holding back an army that wants to do its job.
Yep.
And man, they just cut it.
So I can give a little inside baseball here. Well, this is what I believe happened. When it came to to Mexico had to start working with that's one of the reasons that the flow has been sort of cut off, is because Trump strong-armed Mexico into actually, cutting off their southern border and not helping these people traverse through. Because the other option was, we're going to drone strike the cartels in your territory. That was, I'm telling you, that's what I think is actually happening here, because they don't want that to happen. That would embarrass the government down there. But I think that was the other option. Either you guys shut the cartels or shut off the migration flows at the southern border of Mexico, or we're going to wipe out the cartels without your permission.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the only thing holding Trump back from actually going in there and drone striking the cartels at this point, because I would love to see that. I think most Americans,
and they would be justified. They are at least a quasi-military organization.
They've killed hundreds of thousands of Americans.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers they killed probably exceed Vietnam. 50,000. The Mexican cartels over the last 20 years, or if we want to go back to when I used to investigate them, they were kind of like a much more lower level, but still equally vicious.
Yeah.
I mean, they kill thousands of people a year.
Yeah. And
you multiply that by 30, 40 years, that's a lot of people.
Now we'll talk about the amount of fentanyl pills that they ship across the border as well. And so that then brings it into the hundreds of thousands of Americans that they're killing on our turf.
Yeah.
So, and they know what they're doing. That's not a mistake. It's not like a side effect of, they know when they send fentanyl over the border that they are exterminating Americans. That's at the end of the day, they are doing it willfully. So
yeah, and I think in the case of China, it's a great twofer.
Yeah.
They get to kill Americans. Oh, threefer. They get to kill Americans. They don't put any of their own people at risk.
Mm-hmm.
If we went to war, we would kill some of them back.
And they're taking out a bunch of military age
and they're
men.
making a fortune.
And they're making a fortune off of it. It's a win-win-win for China. And Joe Biden allowed a lot of that happen because they knew that he wasn't going to do anything about it. That Joe Biden, I mean, he was the pushover of the world, and that's why half of Trump's energy now is like spent trying to figure out how to bring us back to 4 years ago, before Biden allowed the invasion, before Biden brought us down to here on the world stage. And I think he's doing a damn good job at it. I mean, he's
miraculous, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the turnarounds have been spectacular. And I don't know that anybody could do it any more effectively. And even the animosity toward him all comes out of that. All comes out of the situation they left. Mm-hmm. And they're becoming. I think the Democrat Party is disintegrating. I think it's like it's internally just withering. And I think inside the leadership of the Democratic Party, there's, if you could conceptualize it, pure evil.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was somebody who was a bipartisan, moderate Republican when I was mayor. And when I ran for president, one of the reasons it was hard to get the nomination, I was too moderate.
Yeah.
And I probably, as no Republican has worked as much with Democrats. I ran the city where the city council was 45 Democrats and 6 Republicans. So I couldn't have accomplished a damn thing if I didn't work with them.
Right.
And I'll even say the usual prejudice line. Some of my best friends were Democrats, but it was so different. It was absolutely so different.
Mm-hmm.
Now if they aren't completely pathological, they cover it up.
Right.
It's like you're either like Ramadani there. Or,
I forget his name all the time too. I try to
Rama Ramadani, or you're one of the you're one of the group of those. What's the name of that woman who married her brother?
Ilhan Omar. That's what we're talking.
That's what
the one that should be deported. All right.
She married her brother to come into the United States.
So she lied on her forms. She should be denaturalized and deported. I don't feel bad for saying that. Right. You call me a racist, call me whatever. We gotta send these people back. How do you come into this country from Somalia and call America a shithole? Yeah. That was a quote. I'm not making that up. She said it on live TV. But you made a good point about the leadership of the Democrat Party.
But then the others who are, I guess, okay people. I mean, they're the people I used to work with. But they're completely intimidated. They won't say anything. Even Ramadani, they won't say anything about. I mean, did you see? I don't know if you saw the speaker, Jeffries.
Not the speaker. Never. Hopefully, let's not
the speaker. The wannabe speaker.
Yeah, a dollar store Obama. Yeah.
Right? He was so uncomfortable answering questions about it. First of all, it's just a given you're going to endorse the candidate of your party.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be your best friend. I mean, if somebody gets nominated in the Republican Party for mayor in New York, unless there's something really wrong with him, we'll support that person.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, I've really never met him.
Well, luckily,
I know, but you're in the same political party, you jackass. I never really met him, and he is the next district, but I never really had. I'll have to talk to him.
Well, luckily, the Mamdani guy has the endorsement from not Alex from the Bronx, but Alex from 28 miles outside of New York City. What we found out sometime this week. She tries to say that she's from the Bronx, but that was proven not to be true. But if you're so left to the point where you can't get dollar store Obama to endorse you, somebody that lives in New York City. You can't get him to endorse you. I mean, you've got a huge problem on your hands. I'll tell you that right now. And the thing that I see with New York City, and I don't understand what. So I was just up there. I was trying to track him down this weekend, and I did successfully. I had a little bit of intel. I figured out where he was, and I was going to do an ambush interview of him as he was coming out the door. However, the guy that wants to defund NYPD also has a massive NYPD detail. I mean, a detail that looks, his detail is probably bigger than the governor's detail. It's crazy. You can't get anywhere close to him. They were watching me the entire time. They pushed me back. I mean, typically I can make a pretty good video, even when they're pushing me, but they had me so far away from him.
Right.
And it's so hypocritical. He said, I ride the subway everywhere. And we need that. Social workers have
the things he says about the police department are horrible. I mean, they're that one quote that I've played any number of times. They're racist. They're vicious.
Yep.
I mean, I don't even know what that's based on. I mean, the New York City Police Department is a non-majority police department. It's not white majority. It's not black majority. It's not Asian majority. It's probably a little bit plurality white, but a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty darn integrated police department. Their incidents of racism are way down. That's been true for 25 years.
Yeah.
Compared to other police departments. And their ability to control crowds is second to none. I mean, I pointed this out during the Floyd riots on Fox. They're all looking at how these people are getting arrested so quickly. In some parts of America, the police putting handcuffs on you requires the entire police department to be there.
Yeah.
Put the handcuffs on you. New York City cops rarely need more than one. And very often, if it's a riot, they're old guys. And I said to the reporter, I'm gonna teach you something that you don't know, and you're gonna be the smartest reporter in New York in doing these riots. You see all those white shirts? See all those some of the cops have blue shirts on.
Mhm.
See the white shirts? Those are all middle-aged guys who are at least lieutenants, not sergeants, not policemen, lieutenants.
Mhm.
Every single one of them had to pass 2 tests of even with the lowered standards, which most people fail. And when we have something sensitive, we put our supervisors out in the field to protect the young guys,
Mhm.
and because they'll know how to do it. And then when the young guys are there enough, they get to see how to do it, but they have the superior officer right there.
Right.
Whereas one of my criticisms of the Floyd situation was no superior officer ever came to take control of it. I mean, among other things, he's not involved in the emotion of it. So the 5 cops are there, and it becomes a problem. They're all involved in it.
Sure.
Now somebody can step beyond it and look at it, can figure out right away, how do I get this under control?
Mhm.
And no other police department uses their superior officers the way we do, which is and same thing with the fire department, which is the reason why we lost so many veteran firefighters and police officers, because they went in the building.
Right.
They didn't stand there and, tell stories about what they did 20 years ago. They actually went right in the building.
Sure. Yeah, the thing that worries me here is because while the NYPD is one of the best departments in the world,
he would have no idea of what I just said.
Yeah,
it would be like a complete fog.
Well, because he lived in Uganda at the time, he probably had no idea what the effect of 9/11 was on New York. Just to be honest, he didn't see any of that happening.
How can you possibly say things like, "We're going to have government-owned grocery stores"?
It seems like a bad SNL skit. And now he's talking about buying up houses with taxpayer dollars, buying up housing, and then developing it and letting people live in it for free. It's fantasy land.
That's China.
We're talking about it is China. It's communist China. We're talking rainbows and unicorns. None of this stuff works. It's never worked in history.
The last 2 days, the president was very, very direct and explicit. He's a communist.
Mm-hmm.
He even said as far as I can remember, he's the first real communist candidate for a major office in America, a serious candidate.
He has never once denied the fact. People have been calling him communist for weeks now. He's never once denied that, because you can't deny it. He's calling for communes. What do you think a government grocery store is?
Yeah,
That's a commune.
It's almost
communist.
He even uses the same language that comes right out of Marx. The government should have control of the means of production.
Right.
That's the
way. That's a quote.
That's what Marx and Engels described, the means of production. And government-owned. Did he ever take a look at what happened to the Soviet Union at the end of communism when there was no food and the government-owned stores?
I mean, they're like, oh, well, it's never been tried before. Yeah, it's been tried lots of times, and it's failed every single time.
Yeah.
I mean, name one instance where it's worked out.
Honestly, it's failed in China. I mean, half of China is impoverished. The other half of China is wealthy.
Right.
And
they don't show you the impoverished part.
Yeah, and they don't calculate that in analyzing the strength or weakness of the Chinese economy, which is why it's always been a very exaggerated comparison with us. Now the Chinese economy is having real problems that everybody can see. But it's never been the strong economy that we thought it was, because it's hiding a problem. Half of our country is not starving.
Mm-hmm.
Half of their country is starving. They don't give a shit.
Right.
Right?
Well, they also...
In fact, they're hoping they'll die. They love to have a little smaller population.
Yeah. The thing with that really... the reason that people are like, well, you don't live in New York. Why do you really care what happens in New York City? Because of the fact that it's America's largest city. It's the epicenter of finance in the world.
Right.
Really, my parents grew up there. My grandparents grew up there, and they freaking love everything that you did at the time. I mean, and I'm not just saying that to like blow smoke. I'm actually saying it. It's people don't realize anymore what they're missing. What they need to do, and we need to find a way to get this out there, is look at New York City pre-Giuliani and then post-Giuliani, right in between, and look how much was changed. Look how cleaner the subways got.
Yeah.
Look how cleaner, the streets got. Look at the crime that went down.
It wasn't rocket science. It was what President Trump loves to call common sense.
Yeah. Why would you want to go back?
It was like common sense. It was, hold people accountable. You hold enough people accountable, the vast majority will go along with that, and you'll still have a few that don't, but you get the number down.
Do you think social workers on the street are going to stop people from setting people on fire on the subway? Is that how you do it? You send more social workers out? Because that's what he wants to do. That's what Mamdani said. He wants to replace police officers with social workers.
There was a congresswoman or a state legislator in California. We're talking about race, and she said, it's really important if you're in a fire, that fire departments be inclusive. It's really important that the person who comes through is of your race and your background and your gender. Oh yeah, and it's like 4'2" and can't carry you out of the building.
Yeah,
are you out of your mind? And if it happened to you, you'd realize right away what an asshole you are.
Yeah, it's like typical. I've never been set on fire.
I just want a guy. I want a guy 6'2" with gigantic muscles who can pick me up. And I don't want some little woman or man to come in because they were purple.
Right. Look at what happened in Los Angeles, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, I have lots of things to say about the mayor out there. There's a DEI mayor, clearly has no idea what the hell she was doing. She was in Ghana while her city was burning down. But secondly, then you had a DEI fire chief in the LA fire department as well. Oh, there's no water. It's like, we had to appoint all the LGBTQ barbecue, whatever people to the highest levels of government out there to some very important positions. Like now you've got a DEI sheriff in LA County.
Said that? It was the commissioner of the fire department who was in charge of. She was a trans, and she was in the fire department, and she was in charge of. She was in charge of making the fire department inclusive, so that half the fire department can't carry you out of a fire, but they're inclusive. But their fire department. If you keep doing that, the people are going to have to go save the firefighters.
Right. Yeah, and that's going to happen more and more. That's why people are having to take,
Or have we turned it?
What'd you say?
Have we turned DEI and? We certainly have fought back.
Yes, and it's been effective.
Have we? Could they revive it like that if they got control again, or people or? I think some of these experiments with children have actually been very definitive.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of parents didn't realize the jeopardy their children were in.
Right.
Even ones that are Democrats that I talked to, when a Democrat talked to me, are very, very traumatized about the way children have been put at risk.
Yeah. Well, luckily, you had a big win in the Supreme Court. You had a big win. That Supreme Court win that said that parents can no longer, or they're now able to opt out of their children being indoctrinated with LGBTQ propaganda in school. Like that was a massive win. Another thing if we want to sort of measure how far we've come, we can also look at the New York City. I reported on this New York City Pride Parade. They lost 60% of their funding. 60%. So hundreds of thousands of dollars they lost because companies don't want to put money into that anymore. They don't want that stain on them. Target's Pride Month section has been replaced this year with the July 4th section. So you go to any Target, even here in DC, you go there and that's what they replaced it with. So we are winning this battle. We haven't quite won the war yet, but we're getting there. These pride parades are shrinking. People are up in arms about. You see all the naked dudes on the streets and stuff. People are pissed off about it. They're waking up.
This is very disappointing, though, because I thought we were headed to an area where a heterosexual male would become an endangered species.
Right.
We could get all kinds of benefits. They put us in a place where we get special food. Just think about it. If they wiped us out, the species would be gone.
Yeah.
They don't know it, but there really is.
You can't reproduce anymore.
There is a reason.
The human race is gone.
There is at least one basic reason for us. And if you keep wiping us out like they do in Ivy League schools, and you go to some of those places, you can't find a man.
Yeah.
I know there are people that pretend to be, but you can't find a real man anymore.
Well, that was another huge.
Tell me that.
Yeah, you saw this today, right? The University of Pennsylvania actually coming out, and they caved to the Trump administration, and they're actually coming out and they're issuing formal apologies now to women that were forced to compete against men in women's swimming.
That's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
They hung on to that to the last moment, and then realized, as soon as they act like they're virtuous and that they're fighting for the trans, but as soon as you threaten to hurt their wallet, they're like, oh no, screw it, they can throw the trans on the bus now. That's what happened. So they're exposing themselves by caving to financial pressure.
I just wonder, I don't think we're going to know until we get to the point where there's an attempt to bring it back. I don't think we're going to know how far we've come in turning. And I think a lot of it is going to depend on if we can get a little bit more in terms of time out of the Trump revolution. I think it's really important, even if our majority is that we hold on to it next year. And I think it's critical that we elect a president.
Yes, we have
that 4 years. The only thing I would say differently is he's really reached the people.
Mm-hmm.
Even the ones that don't like him agree with him.
Right. They just hate to admit it.
Yeah, they hate to admit it. And sometimes he's positively annoying. I mean, he gets grating sometimes, like, what today? But I find him funny because I know him for so long. Today he ended his press conference and he said, I don't know, they must ask him a question about presidents. And he said, well, Obama was a terrible president, but Biden was much worse. And Bush, I didn't think much of Bush. Yeah, but that Trump was terrific. And then he walked on.
The Air Force One. Oh, it was fantastic.
Trump was terrific.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor, I know.
And I don't know what started up his fighting with Elon again. But all of a sudden, I think I missed what started it. But now they're really going at it. Elon must have said something that got them all upset.
Honestly, this is one of those...
Elon went pretty far with the Epstein thing.
Yeah,
that really
think
annoyed me. I know the Epstein... I actually tweeted it out the other day because some other idiot was saying, some other idiot put out, well, they should look into Trump and Epstein. Yeah, well, you're going to find out that Trump threw him out of Mar-a-Lago, threw him out of the golf course, put his picture in all of his guard booths, and said, kick him out of here. And it wasn't over young boys; it was over harassing the masseuses. But of age, girls of age. But when he would get a massage, he would become very, very aggressive with the adult female.
Right.
And she complained to her supervisor and said, she said, "Has this happened before?" I said, "Yeah, it happens every time with this guy." And a couple of the other girls too. They're just afraid because they know he's a good friend of the boss. And she said, "We have no idea what he's like. Let's go tell him right now." "Oh, no, I don't want to go tell him. I don't want to go tell him." A New York Times reporter uncovered this like 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah. I think it was early 2000s. Yeah. Before all this stuff even
they walk in and she tells him the story. And he had great confidence in the supervisor. He had her like in New York and brought her to Florida. And he said, "Is this right?" He said, "Yeah, well, I checked a couple of other girls." Gets on the phone. He calls the head of security. He says, "Take Mr. Epstein's locker, empty it out, put it all at the guard booth, put a little note on it, say we never come back here. If there's anything else you need, communicate with Mr. So-and-so. And if he gets rambunctious, arrest him." And then he did the same thing. And he said, and from then on, I think he had one other conversation with him in his entire life. And he said, I always thought he would, he said one thing that people tried to use. He said, I used to, he was always like with younger girls. But what he meant by younger girls were not 14-year-olds, but like 22-year-olds and he's 50. Yeah. That's what he meant. He was always with girls that seemed a little bit too young. But he didn't mean, he never had any idea that he was a pedophile. He knew he was an abuser, and that's why he threw him out.
Sure.
And he's on his plane twice. Epstein was not on the plane. He borrowed his plane to go back to New York twice, which he would do very often. Epstein might have borrowed his. He would do that with his members. Like if his plane was tied up, he would call a friend or he'd have somebody do it. And in neither case was Epstein on it. He never went to the island. Clinton lied about it. He went 27 times. 27 times. Now, how could that be?
And you have no idea what's going on. It's not a very big island.
No.
So.
Epstein wouldn't take you if you didn't know. Or you weren't participating. Because that's the way Epstein protected himself. I'm sure Epstein had led a very careful double life, which was able to get away with it. If he didn't trust you, you didn't know. You thought he was a ladies' man. You might have thought he went out with girls that were inappropriately too young, but too young meant 20, not 12.
Right.
But if he had something on you, then fine, you could know the whole thing. But
Sure.
but he's got the pictures of you,
Yep.
or he's got you dressed up with your high heels on, and with a big picture of a Billy Boy in his townhouse.
Some weird stuff.
Some weird paintings there.
Weird paintings.
Well, I hate to be the one to cut us off for the
Yes,
next
I know. We're
big
going
meeting
into the
tomorrow.
next
We got
day.
some reading to do.
I know. I got to go to a meeting tomorrow.
We got Nick's hat. Maybe we can take Nick with us. The hat. Does the hat?
Yeah.
Does the hat give him access? That's the DHS hat. So you gotta tell
I had a great time wearing this around New York City this weekend.
This past weekend, I went with him. We were going to look for Mom Donnie to get an interview.
That's like when I was first U.S. attorney, and I'd go to a restaurant and walk into the kitchen, everybody run out. And nobody left in the kitchen. Nobody was getting food. Well,
what a great first night in Washington.
first night in Washington, a free city. I mean, I've been back here a couple of times since Trump has been here. But when I say I wasn't here, I wasn't at the White House. I had to come here for that unbelievable show trial that I had.
We were there.
With which actually was a very good experience because I got to see how they conducted trials in the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, how the judges in the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany. And it's good for the education of a lawyer to know how dictatorships and conduct trials.
And a lot of these people that went after you don't have jobs anymore. So it's fantastic. You know, it all came back around, bit them in the ass.
And the judges in that district, and that lady right there knows it better than anyone, Kara. The judges in that district are, I don't know, I think they're a coven. You know, coven is it's like a gathering of witches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently half of them aren't even Americans. That's what I heard about. Oh, they're from wherever the hell, like Judge. Who's the one that the Trump judge here? What was her name? Chutkin. Where the hell was she from? It's not here.
Right.
I don't know. I'll make my last comment that if you weren't born in the United States, you shouldn't be on a federal bench. Just say that.
But do you think they got some special training from retired Soviet judges? I thought they maybe had like a special refresher course in how to conduct an unfair trial. Ted sat in that case.
I
can't imagine.
Did you?
My dad's a judge. I grew up around this stuff. I was shocked.
Did she hate me? Oh my God! You can see it in her eyes.
I could not believe this was a real judge.
It was like really annoying to her that she even had to go through this shit. She just wanted to say, whatever. She just wanted to have me guilty, and
but they didn't even hide it, right?
She was trying really hard to put me in jail.
They didn't feel the need to fake it.
Right.
If they're against you, you think they'd be both in your face. It's absurd, and they really did just absolutely. It was a total.
She violated
of our legal system.
She violated every rule of evidence imaginable,
Right.
including not allowing me to put in a defense. I couldn't testify.
It really was.
I couldn't testify.
It's a kangaroo court. That's all.
I couldn't testify. I couldn't show videos.
Crazy.
Then I found out that the videos were doctored anyway.
Yeah. Crazy.
Well, thank you very much for listening in. We had a very interesting time. We had some really great guests tonight, right?
Oh my goodness.
And Ted looks satisfied. It looks like everything worked out just right.
We got our friends here. It doesn't come on.
And we'll be in Washington tomorrow, and we don't have to be afraid of having leg irons put on us. Every time I was here under Biden, I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But now it's the capital of a at least from the point of view of the administration of a free country. We still don't have a free press. Oh, in fact, the press may have gotten worse and better. I think there's more of us now that are there's a larger percentage of people practicing real journalism, meaning doing the best they can to tell the truth as they see it. and trying to be accurate and correcting themselves when they're not. But they're still the core group, or would make Pravda proud.
You know what's funny is a lot of these Democrats on Capitol Hill, they'll sit there and it's funny. They'll laugh at me when I come up and I'll ask them questions and stuff, and then they'll be like, oh, they don't think that what I post is going to go anywhere, and then they see it later and it's got 10 million impressions and 100,000 likes and stuff, and then now all of a sudden they're starting to learn the hard way that we have a much bigger reach in this room than CNN does. I'm just saying.
Well, there was a guy from England that I did an interview with him after the election. And he has spent a lot of time studying news in various countries, including here. And he said that if the hard drive had come up in 2024, with the press distributed the way it was, where we probably had access now to 50% or better, he would have been defeated. But at the time in 2020, we were probably at 20% or 30%. And we couldn't get on any. I couldn't get on even Fox. So Bannon and I spent our entire day on local radio and television because they would take it.
Right.
Which is why I think we were able to have him come back in a certain number. Like we were all over Pennsylvania, which is why I know we won Pennsylvania, because they have a lot of local stations in Pennsylvania. And the local stations in Pennsylvania are all conservative.
Yeah.
The networks are left of left. But you go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and
the people.
Yeah. And then when you go and you tell the top talk show guy, and he repeats it every day. It's like you just got yourself an advertisement.
Sure.
So Bannon and I both knew that. I knew that from running for president, and he knew it from running campaigns and how to go around them. Now, if we went around them, it'd be much easier. I mean, with all of the personalities that we have, and the fact that people listen to them, and the fact that they make sometimes even the mainstream media can't miss the news they make.
Right. Well, honestly, you can love him or hate him, whatever you want to think of him. It doesn't even matter. Elon Musk buying X genuinely.
Yes.
Like,
I thought it saved free speech in America.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was
you
one
can
of
say
the
whatever
great,
the hell you want to.
You write a history of free speech, and that's got to be a chapter.
Yep.
He really saved America. And I think the thing that CNN just did is really probably summarizes the whole thing with the leaked report that had to, on the face of it, be false. It had to be false. I mean, the thing is stupid. It said at the beginning, it says that we have very low confidence in the intelligence that there was very little damage.
Right.
Then at the end, they say there's intelligence that there was a great deal of damage. But we have very little confidence in that too, which means they don't know shit.
They don't know. But CNN, the headline is breaking news: the strike fails, and it's like.
So that and it's the same woman who did
Natasha Bertrand. She's like the stenographer of the deep state in Washington, D.C.
She's the same
That's
one.
it.
She's the same one who did the 51 Spies Who Lied.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so was the Jennifer Griffin too. I don't even know why she has a job. I think she just has a bunch of dirt on people, and so they can't fire her. She's not great.
But of course, I was very involved in that. But if you read that letter, the letter that the Spies Who Lied signed had to be false. First of all, they had a day and a half to examine the facts.
Yeah.
And none of them examined any facts. So there'd be no way they could determine that it had earmarks of Russian collusion, which is what they said. Second, to me, as a lawyer, an investigator, whenever you make a general statement like that, and you say, oh, there are thousands of pieces of evidence that had earmarks of Russian collusion, you can't even mention one earmark. Then I know you're lying. You're substituting some general statement because you have no facts. And the first thing a good reporter would have done is ask them, okay, it has earmarks of Russian collusion. Give me a couple. Nobody bothered to call and ask them that. I mean, even for a good story, you want to know, well, what are they? Was it written in Russian? Does it have the fingerprints of a Russian spy on it? What are the earmarks of this thing, which you can listen to, being Russian.
Mhm.
None.
Right.
And then they just printed it and wouldn't listen to the other side of the story. The worst part of it is the FBI knew for 10 months before that it was valid. And so did Barr. And so did the head of the FBI. And they watched the president get destroyed. Even on the debate when Biden accused him and me of being Russian operatives.
Mhm.
Barr could have ended that in a second by putting it out.
Yep.
And I don't know what's wrong. I don't know I still don't know what's wrong with him. What is it? What happened to him? Did they, got to be something they had on him, or, because that guy was not a dishonest guy by nature.
Bill Barr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all
I
of
don't
a sudden, he's letting
Yeah.
the president of the United States like twist in the wind with a piece of evidence that was overwhelming, conclusive. Well,
We could have this conversation for 6
Bad
more
era
hours. I
of
mean,
history.
like,
a bad era of history that has to be exposed if we're not going to repeat it. It has to be, and president's got to make sure he stays on top of the people that are in charge, even though they're all my friends. There could be a little reluctance and fear because it's taken a long time to start getting these things looked at, and they take a while to develop. And the evidence is there. I mean, there's a woman that I know of that claims that she has the information about all of the offshore bank accounts. Now, she should. She was the controller of the company. In fact, if anybody has it, she'd be the one to have it. And she's willing to give those over before she wants to be in the witness protection program. And she's willing to give them over and show that she has this real evidence. And the FBI for 4.5 years has not interviewed her, including now. So let's hope somebody gets on top of it, but we'll keep after it. So thank you, Nick.
absolutely appreciate you having
Thank
me,
you for
Mr. Mayor.
helping to keep America free.
That's what we're trying to do.
And pray for the people in Israel, and pray for the people in Ukraine, and pray for the people in Iran, and pray for the people in the United States.
Especially.
We could use it too. And pray for the president, who's doing a great job, but he needs your help. God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to